As I mentioned in my last overview of a spec being Demon Hunter, I was saying that my next spec would have been a spec that have been changed heavily in the last few days because of a major change. This major change I am referring to is Serpent Stalker's Trickery Legendary. This legendary had been a staple in the beta for, at this point, like 2 months. This was a legendary that made your aim shot also fire 3 arcane shots, and by taking the Chimera Shot talent, the aim shot would also be shooting 3 Chimera shots. Remember that Chimera Shot hits 2 targets, so shooting 3 Chimera shots meant hitting 6 times every aim shot. This made it, extremely out of control. I had mentioned in multiple ranking guides, multiple overview of range DPS, how I wasn't putting marksmanship too high because of this overtuneness regarding the legendary, regarding the Chimera Shot damage. And then right when I published the DPS rankings for Castanatria, I decided to say, okay, apparently Blizzard is going to release marksmanship in this state, so I'm going to give it an A tier. They're very good, they're extremely powerful in cleave and in priority damage because of this legendary, and because of the extra damage they can do on a primary target when they are allowed to hit multiples because of trick shots. Trick shots only enables if you're hitting 3 or more targets, so even for priority damage on single target when there are 6 or 7 or 8 enemies around the primary target, marksmanship was still very strong. So I caved in and I gave them the rating according to their state in the beta. And guess what happens? Basically the exact same day I am reviewing the Hunter, what happens is Serpent Stalker's Trickery gets removed from existence. Instead of hitting 3 targets with Chimera Shot, now this legendary is going to add a Serpent Sting to your target. This is tragic, it's awful. On single target, at the very best, is going to give you 10 focus every 18 seconds and 1 GCD every 18 seconds. It's terrible. Even in multi-target, it's still terrible because when you want to spread your Serpent Sting, you don't want to do it by hard casting an aim shot. You just want to tab target Serpent Sting. You don't want to use your primary damage focus ability, your aim shot, to spread the Serpent Sting. So this legendary has turned into an absolute awful legendary, which means tons of opportunities have to open now for marksmanship because they can no longer play the way they played before. So let's look what's going on now after this drastic change. So the basics of Marksmanship Hunter. Marksmanship Hunter has focus. You build focus with your steady shot and with your rapid fire, and then you spend it on single target with aim shot, on AoE with multi-shot, and on cleave with Chimera Shot. If you don't talent into Chimera Shot, then you spend it in single target with Arcane Shot. That's just the basic of Marksmanship Hunter. When it comes to synergy with your talents, you have Trick Shots and Precise Shots. Precise Shots is going to empower your next Chimera Shots, Arcane Shots, or multi-shots after you use Aim Shot. And Trick Shot is the AoE enabler. When your multi-shot hits 3 or more targets, your next Aim Shot or Rapid Fire will ricochet and hit up to 5 additional targets for 55% of normal damage. Now this is always recommended to be used around your aim shot and not around your rapid fire, because aim shot just simply does more damage than your rapid fire, unless you're using specific talents and legendaries, which as of right now are still not worth compared to your aim shot damage. Your rotation before your talents and possible legendaries is very simple and basic. You aim shot is going to give you precise shots, which is going to empower your next arcane shot, 1 or 2. So you will go aim shot, arcane shot, rapid fire. Then you will build some more focus with steady shot until you can aim shot again. Aim shot will buff you with precise shots, and then you will spend precise shots with your empowered arcane shots. You would normally want to try to not use arcane shot, not use chimera shot, and not use multi-shot if you don't have the precise shots buff, which is increasing the damage by 80%, which is massive. The only caveat is if you're trying to use multi-shot to give you trick shots. When it comes to AoE, that's when it's going to be different, because trick shots come into effect. Trick shots is a passive that buffs you with a ricocheting aim shot whenever you hit 3 or more targets with multi-shot. 5 extra targets hit, or 55% of normal damage. This works with both aim shot and rapid fire, but normally you want to spend this buff with aim shot, as it does flat out more damage than rapid fire. So you will enter a cycle where you want to multi-shot, to gain trick shots, to then use aim shot for the ricocheting AoE. And then you go back to using multi-shot, and you go back to using aim shot. That's going to be the most important part of your rotation. Even if you had Chimera Shot talented, or if you don't, or if you have rapid fire active, using multi-shot to proc trick shots to expand it with a massive AoE damage from your aim shot is going to be the most important part. You shouldn't lose GCDs to cast anything else during this window. Other additions to the rotation are going to be mostly maintenance, like Serpent Sting. You just use it on a target every 18 seconds. If there are 2 or 3 targets, you can maintain it up on those as well. Explosive shot is the same, 30-second cooldown, you just use it every 30 seconds. There isn't really any synergy you want to have with this, just use it on cooldown. Same goes for volley and double tap. Double tap is just an extra damage on your aim shot, an extra hit on your aim shot, and volley is a 45-second cooldown massive AoE. It is advised because volley is going to give you 6 seconds of trick shots, which do not get consumed by aim shot, so you can use it back to back. You can use your aim shot back to back without consuming trick shots when you use volley. So it is advised to pool 2 charges of aim shots before you use volley, so you can volley into double aim shot, which is going to ricochet the AoE damage back to back, thanks to volley, giving you the buff. Other talents that increase your damage don't really change your rotation that much, like Chimera Shot. It just modifies your Arcane Shot into a Chimera Shot. The focus cost is the same, so it doesn't really change anything. Things like Lock and Load can give you an extra free cast of aim shot. That's nice. It's not going to change too much. It means you have more charges of precise shots to dump with your Arcane Shot or your Chimera Shot or your multi-shot. And other things can just be flat out extra damage. Master Marksman is an extra bleed on the target. Careful Aim is extra damage if the target is above 70% HP, so your main rotation remains the same. On single target it remains around using aim shot and spending the charges of precise shots. In AoE it's about using multi-shot to buff you with trick shots so you can do your AoE with your aim shot. It is pretty important to mention that there is a snapshot damage element to trick shots. Trick shot says your next aim shot is going to ricochet and hit up to 5 additional targets for 55% on normal damage. The normal damage is the damage you are doing with aim shot on the target, which means if you're targeting an enemy suffering from your careful aim passive, meaning your aim shot is going to do 50% more damage, the trick shot's ricochet effect is also going to get that damage increase. If you have, a trinket active with extra agility, anything that can give you extra power, that is going to increase the damage of your trick shots. You do want, if you can, try to line up your trick shot effect, your ricochet effects, when your aim shot can do its most damage. But that's the basis of your rotation for both AoE and single target. As I mentioned when I went over the Castle Natria range DPS rankings, if you watched my Havok video, you've seen how highly I praised the options for Havok to be able to play a little bit more oriented on single target now. Marksmanship Hunter has even more choices. If you want burst, you can go for something like double tap, which is going to double your next aim shot cast, and you can even synergize it with careful aim, because of course a new target is spawning, a new enemy is spawning in a fight. He is a very high priority target, you want to burst it down. Careful aim is going to give you 50% extra damage, and then double tap is going to double that aim shot. With the damage increase for careful aim, it's very powerful. Maybe you want to do AoE, so instead of taking careful aim, you can just take explosive shot. Very high sustained damage for not too much of a cost, not too much of an uptime, a maintenance time. It's not very difficult to use. At the same time, in the row where you have double tap, you can also choose to go for execute phase damage with Deadeye. Double charges on kill shot, your new baseline execute ability, and increased recharge time of aim shot. This is extremely powerful in single target, and remember, Marksmanship is the only spec for Hunter that can synergize with kill shot and the Covenant of Ventir, Flayed Shot. This is because Hunter, Marksmanship is the only one that has a talent specified for kill shot. Survival and Beast Mastery don't. Also, Marksmanship is the one that has the mastery that works with kill shot. The mastery for BM Hunter, for example, is increased pet damage. It doesn't work with kill shot. The mastery of Marksmanship is increasing all of your damage, including kill shots. So this is a very, very powerful talent for execute phase damage. You don't need execute, you don't need burst, you can go for lethal shots. Flat out reduced cooldown of your rapid fire, your single target damage, your sustained single target damage. Same goes for the last row. You can take volley for sustained AoE, you can take lock and log for sustained single target and sustained free refreshes of aim shot, or you can take call in the shots for reduced cooldown of your main DPS cooldown if you need to have more uptime on this cooldown, if you want more burst phases, more important burst phases throughout an encounter. You can use this talent to make sure you can fit as many cooldowns as you can in the fight. We have to touch, of course, on Chimera Shot. Obviously, your 2-go talent when it comes to cleave, extremely powerful, especially because of your passive I mentioned, precise shots, increasing the damage by 80%. It's going to do a lot of damage on Chimera Shot. In fact, so much so that Chimera Shot had to be nerfed by like 50% on the second hit because it was way too powerful. Again, with the single target synergy, you don't need cleave, you can go for streamline to just increase the damage of your single target rapid fire. And we can even go back to the first row. Serpent Sting is for spread cleave, dot cleave, hitting multiple targets with this DOT. Murder of Crows is for fights where you can expect multiple targets to be dying quickly and often, so you can just cycle your Murder of Crows. Or you can go for the lower maintenance, easier to use Master Marksman for more sustained single target damage. The choices when you want to play Marksmanship are very varied. You can play multiple styles. Obviously, with the change of Serpent Stalker's Trickery, you're going to be hurt a little bit more when it comes to cleave and when it comes to 3 targets specifically because of the loss of your free Chimera shots off of your legendary, so you have to go for new legendaries now. After the buff, Surging Shot has become a very powerful single target legendary, 25% more rapid fire damage, and now Aim Shot has a 15% chance to reset the cooldown of rapid fire. If you tie this up with Streamline, which also increases the damage of rapid fire by 15%, and then you can tie this up together with Lethal Shots to further reduce the cooldown of rapid fire. When you use Chimera Shot or Multi-Shot, it makes it very, very powerful. You can even go for Call of the Wild for a 35% cooldown reduction on your True Shot, sending it from a 120 second cooldown to a 80 second cooldown. Pair this together with Calling the Shots. You can bring it down to a 40-ish, 45 second cooldown for your main DPS burst ability, and then you have what you're falling back to after the major nerf of the legendary, which is Secrets of the Unblinking Vigil. When you gain Trick Shots, you have a 50% chance to refund a charge of Aim Shot and cause your next Aim Shot to not consume any focus. This is very powerful in Funnel. When you have a major target, a major threat, you have to focus, and there are 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 targets around it. You can constantly cycle your Multi-Shot to roll the dice 50-50 on whether or not you get a free charge of Aim Shot with no focus cost. This is very powerful for single target Funnel. It was powerful before, it was just completely overshadowed by Serpent Stalker's legendary, but this is still a very powerful legendary for Funnel. With Surging Shots being very powerful for single target, you're still in a very nice position when it comes to choosing your legendaries for your damage profile you want to do. I am happier that Marksmanship has been nerfed now, because now you can better value the spec without this gigantic elephant in the room, this gigantic legendary in the room that sort of warped the entire look of the spec as a whole because of that legendary alone. Now that it's been brought down to par, I mean, it's not being brought up to par, it's garbage right now, but now that other legendaries can shine and they can change a little bit more the way you're supposed to play Marksmanship, I think you will have better options now. You will not be forced to use the legendary every single time there is a fight that has 3 targets. The spec, when you want to go for things like Serpent Sting and even Explosive Shot, does play nicely. You have a nice rotation of abilities, you have to keep up your Serpent Sting, you have to play around your Trick Shot buffs. If you're using the legendary with the 50-50 chance of the refund of the Aim Shot, it's even better. The damage so far is nice. It's definitely a powerful spec when it comes to damage output. It doesn't need any tuning. It's not really, you know, far in the back in terms of damage. It's very competent and competitive. They do have their main problem, as I mentioned with Frost already, the fact that they lack burst. Their cooldown True Shot is pretty bad. Reducing the cooldown of your Aim Shot and Rapid Fire by 60% and 50% faster cast time is good. Like, it is a good basic cooldown, but the thing is you can't really couple it with any other cooldowns you have, any other burst windows you have, so it's not very powerful. As I mentioned, Marksmanship is very strong in very, very short bursts of damage. As I mentioned, things with Volley, with Double Tap, with Careful Aim can give you these 2, 3, 4 GCDs of very high damage, but then that's it. Like, your burst just falls down heavily. It's not Combustion, it's not Avenging Wrath, it's not Vendetta, you know, it's a much shorter burst. It's definitely in a much better shape than it was in BFA, Marksmanship Hunter. Especially when you consider that Marksmanship Hunter does scale very well. They have a 2-to-1 scaling on their mastery, meaning if you have 10% mastery, you are doing 20% more damage with all your abilities. So this is a mastery that scales very well in the late game. To be fair, so does BM Hunter's mastery, so they are on the same level on that. But Marksmanship Hunter does bring itself apart from BM Hunter. This is important because you are 2 specs of the same class, so you will have to choose one of the 2. BM Hunter has better, much better, especially with the legendary nerf, has better sustained cleave than Marksmanship Hunter, but Marksmanship Hunter has the ability to have better funnel, has the ability to gain more single target damage on multiple enemies grouped together. They do have the option to spread cleave with Serpent Sting. I mean, it's not much, but it's certainly better than BM Hunters. They don't have to suffer the retardation of a pet AI in any way, and they also have burst compared to BM Hunter. As I said, it's not much, but Double Tap, Volley, a series of Chimera Shots do constitute as a pretty strong burst. Whereas BM Hunter, you know, Aspect of the Wild is trash, and no, I don't count Bestial Wrath as a cooldown. It's gonna have a very short cooldown and a very high uptime for a BM Hunter. And they don't really have anything beyond that. So they do have different enough damage profiles that you might want to use one spec for one encounter and the other spec for another. They are not in an unfortunate situation of one spec will simply be better at everything that the other one wants to do, so the other one will never be played, right? This is dangerously similar to the situation, for example, of Assassination and Subtlety, where the focus single target and the funnel single target of Assassination is being overshadowed by Subtlety. So to me, Marksmanship is in a pretty nice spot. Very nice damage profile for the raids. Pretty good damage profile for Mythic Plus. I wouldn't complain. I wouldn't complain if it was strong in BFA, and considering that in BFA Marksmanship has been barely ever played, right now it's in a much better spot. With this, I take my leave. We are done with Marksmanship. The next spec I'm going to go over is going to be another melee DPS spec. This one's going to be pretty short, because there isn't going to be much to say. You will see why. And that's it. See you guys soon, and in the meantime, I'm off to build my new Lego set.